So today I want to talk about werewolves.
Werewolves. I know what those are.
Excellent. I'm glad you do. So what are they?
Uh-oh.
You seem so confident now.
I know. Well, werewolves are people that, for some reason or another, depending on the lore or the story, turn into this nasty creature, like dog-like, wolf-like creature, on full moons.
Yep, exactly. There are two major werewolves in the Harry Potter books, Remus Lupin and Fenrir Greyback. And they both have really cool names, so they're going to get their own episode on their names. Today I'm just doing the concept of werewolves.
Strictly talking about werewolves themselves.
Yes,
Okay.
Exactly.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So this is not a creature that J.K. Rowling invented.
No?
No, imagine that. A very common mythical animal in the real world, goes back thousands of years, kind of becoming a more widely known myth about the same time as belief in witches was very popular. And actually, their werewolf trials were kind of a lesser known cousin of wolf trials, witch trials. Sorry.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
You only hear about witch trials, really.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Started kind of then becoming popular, and then, up to today, it's their big feature in pop culture and, modern movies like the Underworld and Twilight series. And it's thought that the myth of the werewolf kind of may have originated through rabies. These creatures that become wild and ferocious and with a no known cause at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've talked very briefly in a past episode about Luna, about the moon and the connection to werewolves. But let's dive in more about werewolves themselves in this episode.
Yeah. So Rowling kind of uses many aspects of common myths about werewolves, but adapts them to the wizarding world. So werewolves are slightly different in the Harry Potter series.
Okay.
So they can't control their transformations. That's pretty typical. Or what they do when they're transformed. But they do remember it all when they return to human form.
Okay.
Yeah. And they'll try to hurt or kill any humans they come across, friend or foe, or to harm themselves if there are no humans around. Oh. But they don't really harm other animals. Versus a real wolf is, not actually that aggressive, even though they kind of have that reputation. Yeah. Part of the thing of werewolves is that they become more aggressive than typical.
Yeah, but they're not out there hunting deer or something like that. They're
right. Yeah, they're specifically human bloodlust.
Yeah. Okay.
So in the wizarding world, there's no known cure to werewolfism or whatever you want to call it. But there is the Wolf's Bane potion, which was invented by a wizard called Damocles, that kind of allows them to keep their human mind when they're transformed. So they have more control and they're not just mindless killing machines. But it's very difficult to make and has rare and expensive ingredients. So a challenge to do that every month, for your average werewolf.
Get a prescription from your wizard doctor or something.
Exactly, yeah. But this is the potion that the year that Lupin is a teacher at Hogwarts, Dumbledore asks Snape to brew him this potion every month. So which is a good thing for a werewolf who's around hundreds of children all the time.
To at least kind of be under control when they turn every month.
Exactly. Yep. And another one of the Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers, Gilderoy Lockhart, claims in one of his books that the Homorphous charm will force a werewolf back into its human shape. But, you can't trust anything that Gilderoy Lockhart says.
He's just the guy that's out for fame, kind of, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So it's in one of his books that he did this. But, he does kind of rip off real people for his stories, his books. But so who knows if it's actually a real thing or he just, enhanced it and made it up. But those were the only two mentioned things that can help control a werewolf.
Okay. Now, maybe you'll get to it, but how do you initially become a werewolf?
It's funny you should say that because that's the next thing on my list.
Smooth transition.
Smooth. You're reading my mind. It's crazy. Yes. So to become a werewolf, you have to be bitten by a transformed werewolf during the full moon.
Okay.
So the wolf saliva kind of mixes with your blood. It's a contamination. It's actually in the wizarding world, it's a magical disease called lycanthropy. So most people actually don't survive the bites. Werewolf attacks are usually quite severe and people, would bleed out before they're able to transform. One of the things they talk about in the books is, is this severity of werewolf wounds, the scars of a werewolf wound cannot be healed by magic, which, typically scars can be in this world.
Okay. So you bear the mark even when you're not in werewolf form.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is kind of a bit of an adaptation of the common myth that you have to use silver to kill a werewolf, like a silver bullet. But in the Harry Potter universe, a concoction of silver powder and dittany will actually help heal werewolf-inflicted wounds.
Okay. So she kind of turned it a bit.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What the heck is dittany?
Good question. It's a magical ingredient. No, I think it is an actual herb, but I'd have to look that up.
Okay. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yep. And then on the other hand, though, if a werewolf bites somebody as a man when they're not transformed into a wolf, which you're like, why would they ever do that? But Fenrir Greyback did do that. The victim won't become a full werewolf in that case, but they will have some wolfish tendencies, she says. Okay. And this is what happens to Bill Weasley, actually.
Oh.
Ron's oldest brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In one of the battles, Fenrir Greyback, the werewolf, bites him, but it's not the full moon. He's not transformed. So Bill doesn't become a werewolf, but he has I think what she says is a liking for rare meat or something like that.
And howls every once in a while.
Right?
Okay, interesting.
And in the Harry Potter universe, the only werewolf to ever reproduce as a human is Remus Lupin.
Oh.
Yes. I don't know, maybe you didn't get to this part.
I guess not. No, it's not ringing any bells.
Yeah. He eventually in the end of the sixth book and seventh book, he gets together with Nymphadora Tonks, the Auror, and they have a son named Teddy.
Okay.
And, Lupin is all worried that Teddy's going to inherit his disease, so to speak. Yeah. But he does not. So he does not become a werewolf automatically.
So it's not a hereditary? Is that the word?
Hereditary.
Hereditary.
Yeah.
Tory,
one of those, vowels.
Yeah.
Yes. However, if two werewolves mate in wolf form, the result is often an actual pack of actual wolf cubs, not werewolves, but wolves.
Whoa.
With near human intelligence, though.
Whoa, that would be
right.
Kind of terrifying.
A little bit. Although, wolves are supposedly more docile than werewolves, right?
Right, yeah. But humans aren't docile necessarily.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah, if I had fangs and could live out in the winter weather and run around in the dead of the night and cause havoc, I don't know, maybe I would. Interesting. Now, is that a fact from the wizarding world or werewolf legend in general?
No, that's a wizarding world thing, and it's thought to be the origin of the pack that's in the Forbidden Forest by the school.
Ah, okay.
And that Dumbledore kind of allowed them to live there. So yeah. Now we're going to come to some of the more sad aspects of werewolfdom. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for
get your tissues out.
My trigger warning up front.
Right. So werewolves are feared but also looked down on by wizards. It's very hard for them to live or have friends or relationships. They can't get jobs. Actually, the horrible Dolores Umbridge helped pass anti-werewolf legislation that made it especially hard for them to get jobs. I think this is supposedly repealed after the books finish by Kingsley Shacklebolt. But, Remus Lupin especially is the best example in the books of someone who's always having a hard time and really can't hold out a normal life at all.
Yeah, well, that's a tricky one. And maybe an overreaction to what is not fully understood or whatever. That happens a lot in the real world, too.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, Rowling has said that the magical disease of lycanthropy she used it kind of as a metaphor for HIV.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
She has a quote talking about Lupin. She says, "I think it's important for children to know that adults too have their problems, that they struggle. His being a werewolf is a metaphor for people's reactions to illness and disability." So,
yep.
Not only does he have this horrible thing that he has to deal with in his own body, but the people around him are not helpful and supportive. They look down on him and specifically make it difficult for him to do anything.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's easier to just cast someone out of society or ignore them or stay away from them than to understand fully what's going on and potentially help.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is, one thing why the werewolves allied themselves with Voldemort in the Harry Potter books is because they thought they'd have a better life with him in charge.
Yeah.
But he didn't give him that. He used them to threaten people, but he still looked down on them. He didn't give them any better treatment.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. But the word werewolf actually has some etymology behind it.
Yes, we haven't even really gotten to the word yet.
So were is actually an Old English word for man or a male person.
Okay.
So a werewolf is literally a man wolf.
Man wolf.
Yes. Yep. Pretty self-explanatory.
Unless wolf has a really crazy meaning behind it.
That's wolf.
Yeah, okay.
And I have mentioned that the wizarding disease that creates werewolves is lycanthropy. So a lycanthrope is another word for werewolf.
Okay.
And that comes from the Greek lycanthropos, and lukos is wolf, and anthropos is human.
Okay, so same thing.
So once again, it's Greek for man-wolf.
Yep.
But actually, clinical lycanthropy is a real-world rare mental condition.
Oh, wow.
Where a person believes that they are an animal, often a wolf.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So lycanthropy is a magical disease in the Harry Potter world, and it's a real disease in the real world. Slightly different.
Slightly different, yes. Well, thank God they're not real.
Oh, boy, yeah.
Wow.
Although, depends on how you look at it. It's something to deal with,
right. Right, look at me. I'm a hypocrite here. My initial gut reaction is the same as how people in the wizarding world reacted.
Yep. Ingrained prejudices, I don't want to say, but are hard to...
Unconscious, ingrained biases, yep.
Right, yep.
Wow, well, let this be a lesson to you all.
Right? Don't be a werewolf hater.
Yeah, don't be a hater.
Don't be a hater at all, yeah. So that's werewolves.
Cool. Well, way more in there than I was expecting at the start of this episode.
Yeah, well, good.
Lots of background in there, and in true J.K. Rowling fashion, she kind of took something that we all think we know and added her little spices to it.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Used it as a teaching moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one of the best things about art forms like books and movies and stories is that it's on the surface just seems like a story, but there's the best of them have deeper meaning or teaching experience or make you think.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what makes them great.
Unlike werewolves in certain other magical movies that I'm not a big fan of.
I wonder what you're referring to.
The series that shall not be named.
Right.
Well, cool. Yeah, more in there than I thought. And once again, I come away knowing a little bit more and thinking a little bit harder. And that's the hope that we have for all of you listeners as well. So if you'd like to stick around with us and learn more about other creatures and places and spells and names and all those things that we talk about here on Potternims, please subscribe to the podcast. Share with any other friends you have that are into Harry Potter. And you can communicate with other fans on our Facebook page and check us out on Instagram as well, both at Potternims.
And rate and review us in your podcatcher. That would be fantastic. And if you feel like supporting us monetarily, we do have a Patreon account, patreon.com/Potternims. And if you become a patron there, you get some really fun bonus content. So if you're looking for more Potternims, head over to Patreon.
More Potternims!
More Potternims!
Well, until next time, I'm Erik.
And I'm Al.
And this has been Potternims.